Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 76.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have a great episode. I interviewed Jon Fugler. He's a college athletic expert, and he has some programs that help families get recruited in the college athletic process. So if you have a student that's an athlete or considering being an athlete in college, you need to really understand what that means and how that works. And we have a great interview with Jon where he helps explain some of the ins and outs of athletic portion of college planning. So stay tuned. As always, we have our show notes available at tamingthehighcostofcollege/76 if you need more information or you want to find the links that we talk about in this great episode. All right, here's the interview with Jon. Today I'm sitting down with Jon Fugler. He's the founder and CEO of RecruitMe. Welcome, Jon.
Well, thank you, Brad. Good to be here.
So RecruitMe, I guess, sounds like you work in the athletic, and I know you do. So can you tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do and why you do it and how you came to do it?
Sure. I help families achieve their scholarship dreams, athletic scholarship dreams. And I know that student athletes have that desire to compete at the next level, and parents have the desire to see the expenses taken care of. And so it's a real good match. And it goes back to when I was doing this with our own twin sons. My wife and I were looking at, wow, double tuition. Well, that's a treat. Mm-hmm. And our daughter was already in college. So here we were faced with the fact that how are we going to pay for college? And they were talented athletically. They were baseball players. So we went through a process where we were basically tutored and coached and helped along the way to be able to do the things necessary for them to be noticed by college coaches, begin that relationship, be recruited, and finally be able to compete at the school of their choice with a fully paid education. And through that process, because we went through that, had other parents asking me, how did you do it? What can you do to help our kids? And I said, well, here's the documents. Here's all the material we used. I'll just email that to you, and you can use that in that process as well. And so we helped some of our friends. And then another friend of mine, he came together. He's a systems guy, Ron Johnston. And Ron and I put together RecruitMe to formally help families in a systematic way, step-by-step way, go through this process of recruiting all the way to an athletic scholarship.
Great. So I guess one of the things you mentioned was there's things that you did or should do as far as, getting on track with the process. So let's start at the beginning. If you're interested in trying to figure out if your student can be a college athlete, when should you start and where do you start?
Wow. Well, a couple big questions there. Those are two of the biggest questions I get is when and how. And it seems like, Brad, there's this shroud of secrecy over this recruiting thing. We read about athletes who are signing. We see it in the paper. We see it online, and there's the pictures, and they're standing up there, and they're getting a full ride to such and such a school. And we're going, how in the world did that happen? I mean, how can I get my kid recruited like that and get the scholarship? And there just seems like nobody knows how they got there. We think that somehow they got discovered. They had 7 or 8 schools that were competing for them, and they made their choice, and they're going to USC. Well, that happens in such a small percentage of talented student athletes, a small percentage of those who receive scholarships. Coaches really don't just discover athletes. It really works the other way around, where the families need to put the athlete in a position to be discovered by coaches. And I call it taking the initiative. So how? You need to take the initiative, and that word marketing, you need to market your son or daughter. It seems like just an awful word, but coaches really expect that. So you have to do that. You have to market your son or daughter. You need to make coaches know that there's this talented athlete who desires to take a look at their school and become a scholarship athlete. So that's the first step. Take the initiative. And to do that, when do you do it? I think there's room for something to be done every year, whether the student is a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. There's something you can do every year. The sweet spot really is junior year, but to ramp up to that in the first 2 years, I think is important. So there's something you can do each year. Kind of like I know with what you do with families, you're encouraging them to start early. There's something that families can do in college funding outside athletic scholarships that you encourage them to do each year. So it mirrors that with athletic scholarships.
Right. And I guess in my experience too with, and again, I've done the kind of the financial side with quite a few athletes. And I guess what I found is athletics is even earlier because a typical college coach is encouraging the people he wants to recruit to apply in the, early in the senior year of high school. So, because if your student hasn't applied to the college that coach is at, there's no way he can recruit you. I guess that leads me to believe that they're probably looking at sophomores and juniors as far as who they're going to put on the list. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit as far as when do college coaches start building their lists or looking at students as far as who they might want to recruit?
Sure. Good question. And so I'd mentioned the junior year is really the sweet spot. That's when college coaches are seriously looking at these recruits and who they're going to make offers to. So junior year is really important. Senior year is huge too, because I've worked with a lot of families and their kids in senior year and they're just getting started, and that's fine too, because that really ramps up during senior year. But that junior year is like that. If you imagine a graph, it like shoots up in junior year as far as the recruiting time, the sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
But getting that relationship going, I think that's so important. It really is, and relationship begins before that. So if a student athlete can begin a recruiting relationship with college coaches even in sophomore year, to me that's good, because you want to keep your options open. It's not like you're just reaching out to 2 or 3 schools, making yourself known. I'm thinking 40 or 50 is the list you want to start with, because you got to cast your net wide to be able to have that smaller list as you move along. So building relationships. If there's an interest in a program, then let it be known to the coaches. They'll respond back. There's limited things that they can do. They won't be calling you in your sophomore year, but they can send out camp information, brochures. You can complete the questionnaires, that type of thing. So you can do things to go ahead and build that relationship. And I think that's important. So you can ramp up and it doesn't hit you so hard in junior and senior year.
Right. So now, are there differences as far as the sports are concerned, as far as how things work? I guess I have this, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, but I have this illusion that kind of the big money sports, the basketball and football, kind of operate a little differently than the fencing and gymnastics.
Yeah, exactly. Like football and basketball, those are full ride sports, so they're offering full scholarships in those sports at the Division I level. But in most sports, there are partial scholarships, like baseball, for instance, has 11.7 scholarships that they can offer at the Division I level. So 11.7, I don't know how they came up with that number. And it's a lot more than 11 guys on a baseball team. So they've got to divide up those scholarships. So in that sport, it's rare that somebody will get a full scholarship. They'll get room and board or tuition or books. The coaches have to divide that up among all the players. So they have 11.7. And that's why it's important with what you do, Brad, in helping families find other funding, because you can pair that up and be able to make up the difference. But to have athletes to have stars in their eyes like they're going to get a full ride scholarship, in most of the sports, that's not the case. Okay.
So then if you're, I guess, pursuing athletics, and let's say I'm a parent of a sophomore and, I've got, let's say I'm in your case, I've got twins and one's good at football and one's good at basketball. if I'm, just starting out, how do I know if they're, quote unquote, good enough?
Mm, mm. Boy, that's good. And I know with parents having had sons and a daughter as athletes, and I think they're great. We overrate them, and sometimes we underrate them as well. A couple things you can do to really get an honest opinion. Your high school coach should know whether you've got the potential to play at the next level. I think that's the key. Do you have the potential to play at the next level? Does your son or daughter have the potential to compete at the next level? And that next level is not necessarily Division I top school or Division II. Maybe it's Division III. It's what is that next level we're shooting for? And I think that athletes and parents maybe underrate their kids, and that if they can compete at the next level, I really believe that there is scholarship money available, and I've seen it over and over again. And by taking the initiative, by following through in that relationship, by applying steps that I teach families, sequential steps, that will happen. And but to get an opinion of your high school coach, opinion of club coach, if you have contact with any college coaches in your area, that's a good way. Find those people who are watching your son or daughter in comparison to others and have seen those seniors go off and compete at the next level. They can tell whether your son or daughter has that ability to compete at the next level.
Right. Absolutely. So you mentioned club sports. So let's talk. What's your opinion on club sports? It seems like, again, depending on the sport, I know like in women's volleyball, that seems like there's, in our neck of the woods anyway, there's a couple volleyball clubs that tend to recruit in a pretty wide, greater metro area, and build, the superstars team kind of on purpose with the goal of getting them recruited, perhaps. Or, is that legitimate, or what's going on there?
Yes, it is. It really is, for the most part, to be able to compete at the higher level of the club, and where they're playing a number of tournaments, where they're traveling, going to be seen by more coaches, have that opportunity, and to be competing against higher level of talent, yes. But I know my sons also played some soccer too. They were on a club team. And just because you're on a club team doesn't mean that college coach is going to find you. They weren't seen by any college coaches when they were playing club soccer. But it did give them the opportunity to go ahead and use that as a platform, as a springboard. So you have to kind of take a look at the club team and club program. Is this one where the coach or whoever's heading it up is going to give your son or daughter exposure where college coaches are going to be there, tournaments, that type of thing? And again, it comes back to taking the initiative. You as a parent need to work with your son or daughter to take the initiative to contact college coaches and let them know that you're playing a club sport, that they're playing club sport. What are the stats from that? Are they going to be competing near where these coaches are? Are they going to be competing in a tournament where coaches come? So you really do have to do that work yourself so they can come look for you. They know that you're interested in their program. And as they come in and watch these tournaments and watch these championships and watch these games and matches, that they are specifically looking for you because you've let them know. So you got to put yourself out there. Club sports are a good way to do that. It helps you compete at a higher level. But again, it comes back to taking the initiative.
Right. I think I had someone just on that point. I think I had someone tell me recently that a lot of these coaches, when they show up at the state meets or the whatever, the major club tournaments, etc., they're showing up with an agenda. They're not randomly trying to see who they could find that is a good player. They have a list of people they're already been working with or talking to, and they're wanting to check those people out. Again, so if you're not on their radar, chances are they're not going to spend a lot of time looking at you. So you need to let them know in advance that you're going to be there, and let them know so that they can, again, decide and then put you on that list if they're interested. Absolutely.
And Brad, just to hit on that point a little more, coaches really love it when athletes approach them, because the athlete's saying, I am interested in your program, rather than the coach having to go out and try to convince an athlete that their program is valid and to have an interest in their program, interest in their school. I think there's a misconception, because we see these football players and basketball players who are recruited by tons of schools, and these athletes may not have an interest in those schools to begin with, but that's the top tier. That's like the top 1%, where the coaches are really going out and aggressively recruiting those kids, even when the kids haven't contacted them first. But in reality, they want to know. They don't want to waste their time on athletes that are not interested in their program. So that's another reason for personally taking the initiative.
Right. So what would be some ways to demonstrate interest to a college coach? I guess one of the things I think of is a lot of athletic departments have that contact form.
Yeah.
On their website. Is that what we're talking about, or something else?
Well, my philosophy that I've been teaching for almost 15 years now is you want to make a good first impression. You want to really stand out in that first contact. So the coach looks and says, wow, here's an athlete that I think I might want to pursue, want to find out more about this kid. And if you're just complete the online form, you're doing what thousands of other athletes are doing too. They're just completing the online form. There's a place for that, but I never recommend a family to do that as the first step. I recommend putting together a great introductory package and either mailing it or emailing it to the coach. Now, these days, email is really a great way to go, but I kind of feel like, because nobody's mailing things anymore, send a nice big envelope with that packet, and it lands on the coach's desk, and you know it got there. So I like the combo of snail mail and email. There's a place for both, but I don't recommend filling out that contact form first. I think you got to make a good first impression, and one that sets you apart from all the other student athletes that are making that inquiry.
Right. So, and when is it appropriate to be doing that? I mean, would you do that as a freshman, a sophomore, a junior?
I'd start in sophomore year. Although the coach is going to heavily recruit you in sophomore year, you can build a relationship. And remember this, that it's not just the coach recruiting you, you're recruiting a school. This is your research too. You want to find out what this program is like, what the coach is like. You're going to find out a lot by how they respond to you. You can call coaches, you can visit schools, you can go into the coach's office and meet with the coach long before after you're done with your junior year. There's no limits on how kids and parents can contact schools. There's limits on coaches contacting you, but there's no limit, and there are no rules on you approaching them. So you can go visit the school, you can talk with the coach. So this whole process, you can eliminate a number of programs before you even get to junior year, before they take an active role in recruiting you. Attending certain camps, if there's a keen interest in that program, you can attend a camp. You can't attend a lot because you'll go broke, but you can, if there's something you're keenly interested in, you can attend a couple camps, and you'll find out a lot about the coach, a lot about the program. There's probably some of his or her athletes there helping run the camp, and you can ask them about the school. So this is an opportunity for you to recruit the school as much as the coach recruiting you.
Right. So let me describe two athletes to you and give you a little bit of my take, and then I'd like you to comment a little bit on how they should do things similarly or differently. But when I'm working with families on the financial side, we have the athlete that I would call the hardcore athlete. In other words, they're saying, I want to play my sport at this school because they have the top coaches, or they're likely to go on to the tournaments or whatever it is. In basketball, they made it to the Sweet 16, so I'm interested in them now, or whatever it is, where you're really just focused on playing your sport at whatever the best school / coach / program you can find. Maybe you're thinking the next stop, it's the next stop until pro, or maybe it's whatever it is, but kind of the athletic focus type kid. The other kid that I see a lot more of is, well, I hope to play in college, but I'm pretty sure that I'll be done after that. So not only do I want to play my sport in college, but I also want to walk away with a good education or get a particular major or graduate from a certain type of school. So do those two athletes do things differently in the process that you're talking about?
Let's take that first athlete, for example. It really depends on where their talent level is. I mean, if they're going to compete on, we got the NCAA tournament going on now, March Madness. Are they going to start for Indiana University? Are they going to start for a school like that? And if that's the case, if they're at that level, then they are going to be recruited. That's the level where they find you, at that level of school. But is that athlete saying, man, yeah, I want to start for IU. I picked IU because that's where I went. And you're from Wisconsin, so are we like rivals here? I don't know.
Yeah, they could be.
But if they're saying, man, I'd love to play, I'd love to start and get a scholarship at IU, but it's obviously he doesn't have the talent level to do that. You don't want to cast your net too narrowly. You want to cast your net wide. So I think there needs to be a reality check there. And I keep using that phrase, cast your net wide. You got to keep your options open because your interests may change after a while. And the coaches, the schools that you're interested in may not be interested in you. So you got to really cast your net wide. So kind of answer that from that respect. And then the other with the athlete that says, yeah, I want to compete, but I'm not going to end up as a pro after that. Most athletes don't anyway. What you want to, I love that because we really need to look in most cases, athletic scholarship is a means to an end. It's a means to be able to get your education so you could leverage that for your future. That's hard sometimes for an athlete in some of these sports where they think they're going to go pro afterwards. I was a baseball player in college, and I really thought I was going to go pro. I realized after a couple of years I wasn't, but that was my dream going in. But that education is the key, and your athletic scholarship is a means to pay for that and a means to the end to launch you into your future. So, boy, it's so hard to get our kids to have that broad perspective. As parents, we want to do that, but hey, kids have dreams. Let's let them dream and just kind of steer them and coach them along the way.
Right. So I've had a number of families as well, that kind of that second family, where they say things like, well, here's the 5 schools that have the program I'm interested in, the major I want, and these are my acceptable schools, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So I guess in my opinion, it seems like, and then they say, and if they'll take, and I'd be happy to play athletically at these 5 schools. And and again, so in my opinion, that seems short-sighted in that, well, yes, those 5 schools probably aren't going to recruit you. And if they do, they may not offer you much until you have leverage. And one of their competitors, if you're being recruited by one of their competitors, now all of a sudden you're a hotter commodity and you might have leverage at that school. So do you think, and I guess my recommendation in the past was, if you're serious about using athletics, you need to cast a wider net. Certainly put those 5 schools on the list, but you got to do more than that. And then maybe things will work out and you'll land at one of those 5, or maybe you're going to be in that tough decision where the 2 or 3 coaches that are interested in you are not at the schools that you originally had on your list, and you have a tough decision to make of whether you go to the, pay and go to the list you originally were interested in, or get some sort of scholarship, or maybe get a better deal and play at a different college.
Right. And that's all those variables in there. And Brad, you're right. You've got to think more than just 5 schools. When I counsel families, I encourage them to put a list of 40 to 50 together of ones they're interested in. And you know what? You'll put out your feelers on 40 to 50 and send your intro packet, put your best foot forward, make that first good first impression, and maybe only 50% will respond. And that's not bad. 50% is great. So you're down to 20 to 25. Imagine if you only put out 5 feelers, then you're down to 2 before you've even started. So you've got to, things change over time. Interests change. Coaches change. Programs change. There's so much that can happen during this recruiting period, whether it's be 2 or 3 or 4 years, that you've got to start with a large list.
Mm-hmm. So what are the rules as far as if I'm a parent of an athlete, there was a couple scandals in our neck of the woods where a player got free shoes at a shoe store, and that got him in trouble with the NCAA. Other times, I think I've heard of someone that won a prize at a golf tournament, although he wasn't even a golfer. That wasn't his but he got himself in a little bit of hot water because he took the prize. What are the rules involved with maintaining your, I don't know even know the right word, I think it's called eligibility. Is that applicable to what we're talking about?
Yeah, and I'm not a rules expert, NCAA rules expert, and as you've discovered just in digging into those things, man, there's some pretty stringent rules. It's hard to keep up on them, and I encourage families to go to the NCAA website or just, Google that question and see what comes up, because there's so many different cases and clauses. But I can say is the coaches are very aware of what's right and what's wrong, what's legal and what's not, and the burden is really on them in all of this. That's key. It can fall back on the parents sometimes and the kids, but really the burden, and they have a huge burden, coaches, to make sure that they're staying within NCAA rules.
Right. Now, I know some of those rules are like blackout periods, but most of those rules apply to the coaches and not the athlete. I mean, you can't get yourself in trouble by contacting a school, can you?
Right. So if you called a coach and he wasn't there, or she wasn't there, and you left a message, they can't call you back. But if they are there when you call them, they can talk with you. You can show up at a school and have a visit at any time and meet with a coach, but they can't initiate with you. And there's certain things they can and can't do even within that realm. But you're not limited on the number of unpaid visits, phone calls, that type of thing, contacts to coaches. But so don't be disappointed if you're in your sophomore or early junior year and you're making these contacts and you want to call back, you're not getting a return call. There are certain things that they have to live with. And on the NCAA website, it has that whole list. You mentioned the quiet periods and blackout periods, and there's a whole chart, sport by sport, on when coaches can do certain things in their contact of the athletes.
Right. I guess I have had another quandary, and I can get your opinion on this. And I mean, I think you'll be a little bit more pro sports since you're in the industry, but I've had parents say things like, well, if they're not going to become a pro athlete, they shouldn't be wasting their time in college. I mean, it's too time intensive to be involved in the tennis team or the whatever piece of the puzzle that they're considering. What's your thought on that? And would you agree with that, or what's your response to that?
Well, I can tell you just from my experience and my kids' experience in college too, is I played baseball, didn't get a scholarship, but I've got some great memories of that. I mean, yeah, it was practice every day. It was almost year round because you're conditioning. And there's more to it than just competing. It's the relationships, it's the fun, it's the experience, it's the memories, it's the bond that you create between people, and it's also the character that you can develop by competing or by not competing and being on the team. So there's so many intangibles there I could throw out. For my boys, it was the same way as well. They learned a lot, and they knew they weren't going to be going on in baseball afterwards. But there's more to it than just, is my kid going to compete after college? No, they may end up coaching. They may end up doing something else in the sport somewhere along the way. But it's more than just the athletic experience. There's something about being part of a team. There's something about going through that discipline. And so that's an element. Another thing too is it depends on what level you're at. Division I is high commitment level. Division II is less. Division III is less than that. So it really depends on where you land. If you're a Division I athlete, you better love your sport, because you are going to be putting a lot of hours into it. You better really love it. And there'll be a lot of athletes, this is so common, that say after a year or two, well, I think I'm done. I don't really love it as much as I thought, and my life is going in such and such a direction. You have more clarity on the future. So go in there to enjoy it. Go in there to learn things outside the sport as well. There's so many peripheral advantages.
Right. Now, what about post-college? Do you think if you're an athlete, there's some benefits to that as well?
Well, I'll tell you, I played adult baseball after college and never did give that up till I was over 30 years old. I just didn't want to because I loved it so much. I might be one of the crazy guys, but yeah, I mean, there's some advantages and some benefits. Like I said, you may end up coaching. Maybe you're coaching your kids' team someday. There's some benefits beyond the competition that you don't see now, but you never know where it's going to go.
Right.
So you just enjoy it. Take it as you go.
Right. I think I've seen some corporate recruiters where they will focus on athletes because they feel athletes have some traits that they're looking for, such as being able to compete, being able to, lose and bounce back, right? Because half the games, statistically, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Unless you happen to be on that good team. But there's a lot of winning and losing, and the game goes on, and you have to pull it together and compete again next week.
Yes.
And
yes.
Some of those traits, I think I can't remember what company it was off the hand, but they would much rather take an athlete with B's than someone else with A's. Yeah. All right. Well, that's been a lot of great information. If people want to learn more about Recruit Me and the services you can help people with, where can they learn more?
You can go to recruit-me.com, recruit-me.com. And what I've got for you there is the Parent's Guide to Athletic Scholarships. So if you want to download that, it's absolutely free. It's just 10 to 12 pages where I just touched on one thing in our interview here today. Really, one big point is taking the initiative. But in the Parent's Guide, I lay out for you specific steps that you can take as a family to be able to be in a position to receive an athletic scholarship and to take control of this whole recruiting process. Don't leave it up to somebody else. Don't leave it up to a third party, but take control of it. And when you do that, coaches will take notice because you're the one contacting them as the student athlete with, of course, parent support behind it. But that goes a long way when you're making that contact, when you're showing interest. But there's more to it than that, and the Parent's Guide to Athletic Scholarships is available. And just like you, Brad, and you've been a guest on my podcast as well, the Athletic Scholarship Podcast is where you can get some monthly audio insight into this whole athletic scholarship thing.
All right. Well, great. So you've got a podcast. You've got some free resources on your website. I appreciate all the great information you gave to us. We are going to put all that contact information in our show notes at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. So it'll be available there as well. I appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Thanks, Brad. And hopefully you and I, as we do what we're called to do here, can make a difference in a lot of families across the country.
That's my plan. Thank you. All right, that was a great episode with Jon. Hopefully you learned a ton. Again, the show notes are available at tamingthehighcostofcollege/76 for episode number 76. If you have any other questions or comments, please feel free to get back to us on our website or send us an email, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.